Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Those of you who are on Facebook Live and those of you who are joining me via YouTube, I thank you for all my subscribers. This is Lia Abney with your Keep It Moving Monday Morning Motivation. And I hope that everybody had a great weekend. Um, I know I had a long weekend and feel like I need another day. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like I need another day. But I do hope that you guys had a great weekend and spending time with family and friends and doing some great things. And so, what I did this weekend is I started a garden. I started a garden. Yes, I want to grow my own fruits and vegetables. My grandmother, she had a garden, so I am familiar with gardens. The green beans, collard greens, tomatoes, bell peppers. She's always had a garden, and we lived in New York. So wherever you're at, yes, you can grow a garden. And even though I have a backyard, I decided to, I didn't do a lot of in-ground. I had a little small space that my daughter had started back when she was in ninth grade. She's in college now. And I decided to revitalize that area and throw down some seeds and see what will grow in that area. But there were some things that I learned, you guys. And so, what did I plant? And maybe next time I have some photos. I have to remember to do some photos so I can kind of show them. So what did I do? I started some from seeds, but it required me to do some things before I even started. And so it got me to thinking, oh my gosh, I said, you know what? This is almost like life, when I was out there doing the garden and the conditions, the weather, of course, we have all the creepy crawlies, right? You got to deal with as well. And the lifting and tilling the ground and deciding what it is that you're going to be sowing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like literally, this is everything that deals with leadership, deals with making decisions. What are you going to grow? Doing the research. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that with my topic on today, reaping what you sow. And so we're going to get a little bit into that this morning now. And please have something to write down because I'm a big believer in that. You know what? Those who write things down, you tend to remember those things and you get something out of it. And so hopefully I've dropped some nuggets for you, but stay tuned just for a few minutes and I'll be right back at you and we'll get started with the topic.
Black G, Black G.
Hi, so we are back. And I thank all of you who are joining me on today. Again, my name is Lia Abney, author, speaker, and consultant of Keep It Moving Monday Morning Motivations. And you can visit me if you want to learn more about what I have to offer as far as services, programs, and things that you can shop for. Please visit my website at liaabneyllc.biz. That's liaabneyllc.biz. And again, we offer consulting services for small businesses and also corporate organizations in the areas of leadership, market research, and customer service. So if there's any services that you may need, go ahead and contact us. And you can contact us at info at liaabneyllc.com. That's that is info at liaabneyllc.com. And thank you guys for joining me. And thank you for all my subscribers who are on YouTube. And yes, I don't have a large following, but if you desire to follow me, please go to my YouTube show at Lia Abney LLC. You can search for me in the search feature And go ahead and subscribe to my show. And don't forget to turn on the notifications, the little bell sign, so that you can know when our next videos are being posted. And not only that, that's a good place for you to watch my other videos that I have posted there as well. So thank you guys so much. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. As I spoke about earlier, our topic for today is reaping what you sow. Reaping what you sow. And I know we've heard a lot of scriptures when it comes to reaping and sowing, and as I was studying, and like I said, I am a big believer and just understanding how things work in life period, right? Daily, and how's that tie into the word of God. So my particular interest is in leadership, organizational development. And so I want to know what the word said about those things so that I can apply them in my life to create wealth, to create a legacy. And you can do the same thing as well. So again, we're going to talk about reaping what you sow. And this is not so much about money, guys. This is more about what are the things that you do, because we've already talked about goal setting. We've talked about leadership, and I've talked about some other things. But this particular, when it comes to reaping and sowing, is really about getting started on your goals. How do you do all of that? So that's what I'm really going to be talking about today. So our topic for today, again, is reaping what you sow, reaping what you sow. And so I want to take a look at Ecclesiastes 3 and 3 through 11. Yes, this is a long, yes, this is a long one today, but y'all just bear with me for a moment, okay? Y'all just please bear with me for a moment, okay? So when it comes to bearing good fruit, Ecclesiastes 3, 3 through 11 says this: For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest. Verse 3: A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear down, and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Verse 9: What do people really get for all their hard work? Verse 10: I have seen the burden God has placed on us all. Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart, but even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. Verse 12. So I concluded there is nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. Verse 13, and people should eat and drink and enjoy the fruits of their labor, for these are gifts from God. So there's a whole lot of things that was being said in Ecclesiastes 3 through 11. And I really encourage you just to go through that scripture that I have up there and read through it, meditate on it, take some time to think upon it, and see what it is speaking to you. And so this said a whole lot of things about reaping and sowing, and it said a whole lot of things as far as action, because that's what I talk about, what actions you need to take next to accomplish what it is that you desire in your personal life, or whether it's in your business, if you're an entrepreneur. And I have to say, even as an author, because we have to plan, there has to be a planning that occurs at some point that leads to your decisions. And a lot of times, most of us are making decisions without going through the process of planning and thinking things through. And sometimes that leads to good fruit, and sometimes that leads to bad fruit. Okay. We all have experienced that at one time or another in our decision making process. And so there were some things that I got out of this, and I'm going to share with you just some things that I learned when I was um, doing the gardening this weekend, as I had spoke earlier before we got started. And I'm going to ask you this question when it comes to reaping and sowing. Are you connecting with the right resources? Are you connected to the right source when you are building, when you are making decisions? And what do I mean by that? So, as I stated before, I started building this. I decided to start a garden. And one of the things that have prompted me to start a garden is I have been thinking about it for a while, and then my I have this little small area is what probably 2 by 4 area maybe that my daughter had started a garden for a school project in the backyard, and that spot is still there. That raised bed is still there, and I hadn't done anything with it since she was in ninth grade. And so that's probably about 4 or 5 years ago, y'all. I hadn't done anything with it. I was like, I ain't got the time. I don't have the time. Of course, COVID happened, right? So you find yourself having a lot of time to do a lot of things around your house you probably hadn't done before. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do this thing. But there was something I had to do before I got started. I had to learn some things. Even though I was raised around a garden because my grandmother had a garden on the side of our house in New York. I knew some people that had gardens. I myself had never started a garden. And one of the things I also knew is the first decision, which was a given, that I had learned during this process is only grow what you're going to use. I hope somebody gets this. So when you are starting something, when you are making decisions stuff, only, and you're doing your research, only do that thing that you are going to stick with it and that you're going to use. So that was the first thing. I wasn't just going to throw down things and grow things. And I know this seems like common sense, but how many times, take a moment and think about this. How many times have you done something or you have decided, you bought something and then you find that you only used it for a little while because it did not fit into what it is that you want to do. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. And so, I mean, how many times have we done that? That we've decided on something, we bought something, and we find that it does not fit with what it is that we need to do because somebody suggested it, but it probably was a great product. It probably was a good idea, but it did not fit in what it is that you want to do. And we're talking about reaping what you sow, right? So the first thing I realized, Leah, you have to do some research. So in your decision and whatever it is you're going to do your research. Definitely do your research in all of this. And but the one thing I had to realize is, you know what? I need to get to the root of the thing. So when I was tilling that garden, the first thing I had to do is I did my research. Okay, absolutely did my research. I found out what kind of I watched other groups. I would talk to other ladies that were gardening. I got a young lady invited me into a group for about 2 weeks. I have watched them. I've taken down their notes, taken down notes of different things, what to do, what not to do, how to avoid all the insects that will eat my plants and keep the critters away. I searched to find out some other things as far as what was healthy for my garden and very organic. I had to find that because, and then I also had to find out some other things about it. And I'm a reference what those are as I go over 4 key points to bearing fruit, okay, that I thought was essential that I got out of Ecclesiastes 3 and through 11, okay? Because once I did the research, because remember in Ecclesiastes 3 through 11, there's one verse 6 actually says, in verse 6 of 3 through 11, it says this: a time to search and a time to quit searching. Okay. And a time to keep and a time to throw away. So through all that knowledge that I was gaining through that process, there were some things I threw away and some things I kept. Okay. So there were some products that were off recommended to use in a garden, but I didn't want anything that was going to be toxic later and cause me health problems. So I wanted more organic things that I could use to keep away some of the, like ants. I found out that I can use cinnamon, okay, to keep away ants in the garden. I did not know that. Okay, so and grits is another thing that you can use that you can throw into your garden to keep some of those insects away. And then I learned about some other things that I didn't want to use because they're very toxic. It gets into the soil, it gets into your vegetables, and you consume that. And I didn't want that. It could cause issues later. So those are the things I threw away, right? So in verse 6, it talked about a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away. Well, I also know there had to be a time because a lot of times we spend so much time searching that we never get around to implementing what it is that you want to do. So I had to stop searching for a moment to say, okay, Leah, now you get out there and you plant. You plant where you need to plant. But I also had to learn during that time, I learned about what kind of soil I needed, whether or not I want to put some vegetables into pots, and whether I want to put everything in the ground. But also, I had to learn what could be sown together in the ground or in the same pot. So first thing I had to do is I had to prepare the land. So I'm in a time of preparation, guys. I'm in the time of preparation. So in your time of preparation, one of the things I realized when I was preparing the garden, I realized that there were a lot of roots there. There were weeds there I had to pull out and throw away. We're talking about verse 6, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away. So I'm digging up down to the root. So in your preparation, and it may not be a garden, it may be your finances, it may be a relationship. It may be, things you want to do in your business, new processes and product development. Well, you have to get down to the root of it. Reason why, because you may have some old habits and some old ideas that does not quite fit with the vision that you want to implement. And you got to feed through that and dig through it and find out whether or not it will work for you. And then if there's things that's causing you not to produce what it is that you want to produce, or to start where you want to start, the thing is that you got to figure out whether or not what is causing you or what's causing those barriers. So I found that I had to dig down to the root, and literally there were a couple weeds that were in there. So I had to get down in there and I literally had to pull that whole root up, that whole root. And so you may find yourself having to do that. And so that really is point number one. And the 4 key points of bearing fruit is get to the root of the problem. Okay, dig down to the root and find out whether or not, and this doesn't necessarily mean it's creating problems. This means is why is it that you want to do what you want to do? So get to the root of why it is you want to do what you want to do. And once you understand the root of it, then you'll be able to say, okay, now I can sow something into that because I know why I'm going to do this. Okay. So, for instance, I have a great interest in leadership. And the reason why is because I was challenged with a lot of things on my job. I'm be honest. Some things that later I'll probably write about, but at this time, I'm gonna give it some more time because of the sensitiveness of what occurred. But the thing is that once I understood the root and I had to deal with those emotions that were connected with it. And once I did, I start realizing, wow, this is really interesting. Is there a way I can impact those who are still on a job? Because not everybody's gonna, stop and quit their job and turn around and start their own. Because I do believe that there are some of us that are purposed to be in corporate America because we're supposed to create change. Okay, we're supposed to create change, and we're supposed to be in those positions. And so I do believe that. And there's some that are created to do both, and there are some that will be just an entrepreneur. And so I truly believe that. But getting to the root of why it is that you want to do what you want to do, that will help you create better fruit. It'll help you sow better fruit and grow better fruit. Okay. Now, the next thing is I had to realize and understand, and this is key point number two. Okay, so the first one was to get to the root of the problem. Okay, so we're talking about reaping what you sow. So when it comes to reaping what you sow, and are you connected to the right sources, is number one, understand the root of the problem. Know your why. Know your why and what it is that you're trying to connect to. Number two is know your uh, know what you are compatible. So know compatibility. And what do I mean by that? So when I started this garden, I had to understand what vegetables could grow together because not all vegetables grow together. So I planted some lavender, which is really good in a garden because it deters some of the pests that are there. And I learned that you could also marigolds are good for your garden as well because that also deters a lot of the pesky things that would eat your vegetables. And I grew some carrots, I grew some green beans. But when I planted the green beans, and I planted the marigolds, I did not realize that the marigolds do not pair well with the green beans. But I'm thankful that they're in different rows. So I did not plant them in the same row. So I was like, wow, there's compatibility with different vegetables and fruit. So again, know your compatibility. Why is that important when you're building a business or when it comes to your personal life? So you're not connected with the wrong source. That could be toxic and pesky and very pesky, right? You don't want those pests clinging to you and destroying what it is you're trying to grow. I'm telling you, I learned a lot in this gardening thing. I learned a lot. So you want to know what's compatible to your own resources. So is it compatible to your money? Is it compatible to your time? Is it compatible to your business? Is it compatible to you getting to your next position? And I know sometimes you're like, okay, and even when you're choosing a job, what happened if you're job searching? Is the organization compatible to the goals that you want to achieve as far as your career? And that is so key. I was like, wow. I said, that's powerful. So again, point number one is get to the root of your why it is that you want to do. So you understand that so you know that you're sowing in good ground. Okay. The next thing is know compatibility. You know, what are you compatible with? Um, and knowing what you'll get a return on your own investment, and that is your time and your resources. So number three is to be prepared for shortfalls. And so, again, I prepared myself. When I did my research on the garden, one of the things I made sure was number one, I had to be prepared. If what happens if it doesn't grow? I have to be okay with it. Just start all over. I had to be connected to the right people. Being connected to the right people helped me to ask questions. Helped me to ask questions. So when I prepared myself through connection with the right people, I prepared myself by doing research, my own research, right? So do your research, be connected to the right people, and then also just be okay to let go when it's time to let go, right? So in verse 6, it says a time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to keep and a time to throw away. And then also in verse 3, on the second part of it, when I'm looking at the second stanza, it says in verse 3, a time to tear down and a time to build up. So I understood, you know what, there's a time for me to, just stop, get to a point where I stop so that I can just continue to cultivate the garden, because I can keep on planting and planting and planting so much that I never get to the point of loving on what is growing and appreciating the fruit that's being bared. Okay, being bared at that time. So again, be prepared for your shortfalls. Be okay with the losses. Be okay with some of your losses because I can tell you with building anything, there's some times where you have to stop for a moment. And anybody can probably tell you, yeah, there's sometimes we have to stop for a moment because we came upon a problem, or we have to take a moment to let the cement dry. With gardening, one of the things I had to realize is understanding, okay, the right amount of water because, yeah, you could literally, I call it drown your plants. Because you put too much water, or you can cause them not to have enough nutrients. And so it's a process of learning during that whole time. So when you're preparing for shortfalls, look at it this way: is that it's a process of learning. It's continuous learning at this time. So there's this time where you'll be doing some actions, you'll be learning some things along the way. And so that to me, it seems like a good process in there. So again, let's look at from the top the four key points that I'm talking about when it comes to reaping what you sow. Is includes when it comes to bearing good fruit. Is number one, get to the root of the problem. Number two is know you what you're compatible with, right? Know compatibility. And then number three, as I just spoke about, is prepare for shortfalls. With number four, I know it seems like it doesn't fit in there, but I realized that it does. And number one is really about time management. And I think I'm gonna go more into time management in my next topic, and I'm going to talk about time management. And why did I put this in here? Because I realized that, I had to manage my time and be purposeful in producing what it is that I want to produce. Because when you're talking about reaping what you sow, you have to manage your time and ensuring that you want to get the fruit that you want to bear. It requires time. There's a time of rest. When we look at God and the Bible, there's a time of rest, right? There's a time where you just stop for a while. And even in the scripture, it's Ecclesiastes 3 through 11, it talks about that. It says a time to plant and a time to harvest in verse 2, the second stanza. We're looking at verse 2 in Ecclesiastes 3, the second stanza, it says a time to plant and a time to harvest. And three, it says a time to tear down and a time to build up in the second stanza. And then there's a time where I can actually laugh, and there's a time that I can dance, and in this whole process. And there's a time where I can rest as well. And so in time management, I have to make sure that I had to, number one, I had to look at the time that I was going to sow and plant the seeds and new plants that were coming in, ensuring that it wasn't too hot. Though I did it at a certain time, what time am I watering the garden so it produces the fruit that I want to grow? How do you relate this to life? Whether it's relationships, there's a time that you have to spend time with somebody. You got to spend time with your business to grow that particular business, to get the goals, to see the goals that you want to accomplish. And so, again, the 4 points that I talked about when it comes to reaping and sowing, our topic today was reaping what you sow. And the question that I asked is, are you connecting with the right source? And I referenced this, I connected this topic with gardening, growing your own garden. And so in bearing good fruit, there are 4 key points that I want to share with you on today. The first one dealt with get to the root of the problem. Okay. So when you get into the root, just like a garden, you have to be able to till that goal. You got to look at it, meditate on it a little while, and understand the root of why it is that you want to accomplish this goal. Connect to that. Once you connect to that, then you can start sowing into it to produce the outcome that you desire. The next thing is when you are accomplishing that goal, know what is compatible to that goal to accomplish that particular goal. Does that goal require you to connect with other individuals? Does it require you to obtain resources? Does it require you to obtain a grant? Because that's what you're looking to do. Does it require you, if it's a position you want, do you need to learn more skills, or, are you compatible? You want to know whether or not it's compatible with your current skill sets. Are you going to add to that organization? And then how are you going to sell yourself? So look at the compatibility, because it's just like in a relationship, and those of you who are into astrology, that look at, birth signs and stuff like that. So some of you probably have looked to see what sign you're compatible with. Well, why not do this? Why would you not do the same thing when it comes to your personal life, your finances, and relationships, right? The same thing. Even when it comes to your goals that you want to accomplish. Next thing is be prepared for your shortfalls. Be okay with anything that doesn't work out and be willing to throw that away. Also, understand that shortfalls does not mean failures. Shortfall means that you are identifying new ways of doing things and you're learning. Okay, so shortfalls does not mean that you're failing. It just means what you currently are doing doesn't work, or some outside forces has kind of changed things a little bit. So, like gardening, pests, the little bugs that will eat the garden. Okay. And then the last thing is ensure that you're managing your time when you are accomplishing your goals. Just like a garden needs time and cultivating, you have to do the same thing with your goals and what it is that you want to accomplish. So again, I thank you guys so much this morning. I hope that you enjoyed the topic of today, reaping what you sow. I hope that you'll join me on next Monday as I talk about time management. This is Lia Abney coming to you with Keep It Moving Monday Morning Motivation. And I hope to thank you guys for visiting me. Again, those of you that want to learn more about what Lia Abney LLC, you can visit our website at leaabneyllc.biz. And please, 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 I encourage you to also subscribe to my YouTube show at Lia Abney LLC, where you can catch more shows of Keep It Moving Monday Morning Motivation. I pray that you all have a blessed day. But before I close, I want to add this last thing. Titus 3 and 14 says this, and let our people learn to devote themselves to good works so as to help cases of urgent need and not be unfruitful. So go, grow, and be fruitful on this week.